to go. So it's all yours.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thank you guys for showing up. We don't have a big crowd, which means everybody has a really good chance of winning these handy dandy USB power packs that charge your phone wirelessly. The only rule is you're gonna have to ask a question. I only got 3 of them, so we'll see how we go there. But yes, that's what we're gonna talk about today. My name is Pete DeMayo. I'm with Travel Boom. We're out of Myrtle Beach, and we're a digital agency that specializes in helping independent hoteliers succeed online. So everything from the initial website development to your organic results, pay-per-click campaigns, email marketing, social, and Metasearch, of the many other things that we offer. But the reason Metasearch is so important is it is literally everywhere during the consumer shopping process. So we're gonna break it down into 3 parts. We're gonna talk about what it is for people who maybe get a little refresher. We'll talk about what Metasearch, how you can implement Metasearch, and then lastly we'll talk about measuring the results of Metasearch and what you can find out. But before we get started, Facebook is an imposter. They're screwing everything up because they changed their name to Meta a couple years ago, and it's completely confused all of everybody. So we're not going to necessarily be talking about Meta as in Facebook, but we will cover a little bit about how you can use Metasearch on Facebook, which is like an inception level kind of craziness. But let's go ahead and just dive right in. If my mouse work, there we go. The holy grail of hotel marketing is direct bookings. Everything we're going to talk about today is going to be focused on driving direct bookings to your hotel. It is the most effective and most profitable way we can cultivate that relationship with our guest. So to do that, let's talk about why Meta matters and take a little bit step back to several years ago. And there was really 2 ways that you could own the search results page while your customers are searching and deciding where to visit. There was the organic side, which is SEO. There was the paid side, paid pay-per-click campaigns and whatnot. And that was really all you had to work with. Until a couple years ago, even longer really, you had that 3rd component, which was Metasearch. And it is a fundamental part of having a true domination strategy for any hotel trying to maximize their direct bookings. Because obviously the OTAs are great, they can be great partners and a great source of new business. You just don't want them being the primary source of bookings if someone's already looking for your property. So let's go ahead and dive in and take a look at a traditional search results page. In this case, it's kind of hard to see. You guys might not be able to see it, but it's Boardwalk Resort and Villas in Virginia Beach, South Carolina. We're in Myrtle. Well, we're from Myrtle. You guys are in Ocean City. I want to pick some place in between that we didn't work with because we're going to embarrass them a little bit. So let's go take a look at the search results page. You have the pay-per-click listings, which takes up a good 1/3 of the page. And you'll notice that this property is not bidding on their brand terms, which is a little bit of a no-no. From there, you have the organic listings, which actually take up a pretty small portion of the overall search results page, more or less above the fold. And then from there, and this is why Meta matters, is the other 1/3 of the page, except for that little area right there, which is the business listing. These are all paid areas, it's paid to play. And if we do not appear here as independent hoteliers or even as part of a flag property, we're opening the door to OTAs to come in and just steal our lunch. We've already built the brand by them searching for our properties. If we are not able to turn that into a direct booking, then we've got a big problem. So let's go ahead and dive into that a little bit. And to do that, I think we need to take a step back and look at how customers are planning their journey. So and hopefully this is big enough, but when someone's deciding to go on a vacation, the first thing they do, over 50% of the people are going to open up their browser, do a search on Google, Bing, or wherever that might be. The next thing you're going to do is use OTAs, things like Expedia, Booking.com, but also platforms like Kayak, Trivago, TripAdvisors, and others that kind of fall into that group. The third thing is the hotel website, and this is obviously where we want to get people. This is where we can make the most revenue per booking that we possibly can because we are controlling that guest experience. There's not commissions that have to be paid. From there, they may choose Airbnb, VRBO, which is a divergent path, but about 10% of the people do that. And then lastly, destination websites. These are incredibly important. Things like oceancity.com and other DMOs and chambers, these are so important. And having a great relationship with them can really amplify your marketing. Because this is a place where people start top of funnel, and then Metasearch becomes more and more important as you get down the funnel for the booking. So knowing that, before they decide to actually book, they're going to read reviews. In fact, 82% of travelers will not book without first reading the reviews. How does that impact Metasearch? TripAdvisor. So let's take a look at that one property again. You've already decided that you want to go there. You're excited about it. You want to check the reviews because you do that right before the booking. And in this case, you're going to book it through Expedia, Hotels.com, or something called Super. Again, it's a silver platter with this customer on it. They're ready to book. Why on earth would we not be there? Yes, it might cost $1 or $2 for that click, but how many dollars is that going to be if your OTA is charging you 20%? Yes, that's really what we have to think about there. Another thing to consider too is, on average, a customer is going to look at about 5 to 6 websites. If you're under 35, you're looking at about 7 websites in that shopping process. Now those are individual websites, but Google, TripAdvisor, OTA website, your property site, they're going to look at multiple sessions. So the session count may be upwards of 30, but they're going to stay in a relatively small ecosystem, which is good for us because we can be in all places during that process. This data all comes from the 2022 leisure travel sentiment study that we put on. That was the most recent one. The 2023 is coming out shortly. If you guys want a copy of this, it's at travelboommarketing.com/downloads. You can download that copy for free. It's got a ton of great information about what drives consumers to make decisions. And if you download this one, you'll get the email that says the 2023 is available too. Over 2,000 people have responded, and the data is really interesting. This year we're diving into economics and how the economy is changing travel behaviors. So now we know what they're doing. Let's talk about Metasearch. It's everywhere. Metasearch is everywhere. If you're on Kayak, in this example right here, this property, you love them, you're ready to book them, you're going to book through Agoda. Maybe you go to Trivago. Again, same property, you love them, you're ready to book, you're going to book through Expedia. Even if you Google that property's name, you have choices of booking it through Expedia, Booking.com, or Hotels.com, all of which are not a direct booking. And that is why Meta matters, because, oops, I think I missed, no, I didn't, I'm good. And the last thing is the incredibly high cost of OTAs. I think a lot of people forget just how expensive an OTA is, not only because of the price, but also because you don't have that guest data, you don't have their email address, and you're not starting to cultivate that relationship that's going to turn into a long-term guest. You also don't have guest loyalty, and you don't have loyalty between the OTA and the guest, or the OTA and you. So, but when we look at the financial side of it, okay, 200 room property, $130 ADR, 40% reliance on OTAs, not out of the question. 40%, you know, we've seen properties higher than that, but we need to be, excuse me, in that 20 range, if not less. That equates to $455,000 in commissions alone. What would $500,000 in additional marketing budget do to drive direct bookings and suppress the OTAs? Yes, use them for your new business strategies, but driving these direct bookings with $500,000, you can do a lot of work. And Meta is just a small fraction of what that budget would be. 94% of people, as a matter of fact, are exposed to Metasearch. Now, if you ask a consumer, did you book on Metasearch? They're going to not know what you're talking about, but they're exposed throughout that process on Google and TripAdvisor and everywhere else. So it's incredibly important that you participate in Meta if you really want to have that domination strategy. So hopefully I've set up kind of why Meta is important. Let's talk about actually executing Metasearch. And the first thing you want to do is put your best foot forward. And that means making sure you've claimed all the property listings that are out there on TripAdvisor, on Google, Booking.com, Expedia, every place where you have photos, descriptions and whatnot, you want to make sure you're putting your best foot forward. In this example here of a property that I blurred out the name, if you want to book at this property, well, you're only going to be able to book at .com. That's if you want to book it, because you're going to be staying in what looks like it may have been a cheesy horror movie scene. This is a picture that the property uploaded about a decade ago, though. So kind of keep that in mind. They haven't kept up with it. But you have a hard bed, you have an AC system that has wires dangling down, an old CRT TV. We can't book if customers don't want to stay at our properties. And this property probably looks way better, but that doesn't even count. You have to make sure those profiles are updated and fantastic, because that is what's leading that person through the booking process. Now, it all begins with ARI, which stands for availability, rate, and inventory. That is the tool by which the meta search engines and the OTAs, honestly, get the rates. Similar to like a GDS or a global distribution system where you're pushing rate out to your providers, this is where it all begins. And you need to make sure you have your strategies in place. There's really 3 ways of doing that. The acceptable, barely acceptable, if you have nothing else, this is your secondary parachute. You can use a manual rate table that you can create and upload to Google. It only works on Google, which is good. It's one of the biggest platforms, but it's time consuming and it's not the best way to do it. The second way, which is a lot better, is called a rate scrape. Now, what this does is using any advanced meta management platform, it'll put a little pixel on your booking engine, and every single time someone shops for rates, it's going to store that data and create a nice profile of what your rates are. So when any one time someone's looking on Booking, TripAdvisor, you name it, they're going to have the ability to see your rates. It's great, but it's not the best solution. The best solution is that direct connection to your PMS or booking engine. You mentioned Windsurfer, I know they have one as well. This is really where you want to be because it's going to be the most accurate. It's going to be very automated, so once you set it up, there's not a lot you need to do. And it's going to avoid one of the issues that we have with a rate scrape is if you run a lot of packages, which a beach destination will do, free breakfast, stay 2 nights, get the third free, a lot of times that pricing structure can throw off some of those rate scrape tools. So once you have all that done, you got to remember one thing. Customers are loyal to their wallet and their wallet only. I think followed distantly loyalty to family. They want to make sure that their wallet is being well respected. And if your rate is not the best, it doesn't matter what you do. So if we zoom in on this one right here, and I'm sorry, Boardwalk, for picking on you, but Virginia Beach, nobody here has allegiance to them, so we're gonna do it. I can book at Expedia, Hotels.com, or Booking.com for 80 bucks. Or I can give the hotel the privilege of booking with them for $85. 10 times out of 10, nobody's booking with the hotel property. And they may be doing a really good job with Meta and everything else. But if you don't have rate parity or beat the OTAs, you're not going to get that booking. Now let's look at someone who's doing it well. This is an extended stay brand, a very affordable property. But if I want to go stay in Albany, Georgia, I have the ability to book directly with the property for a low rate of $35. I know it's going to be the best rate. I know it's the official site. It's got a call out for free cancellations for $34. Or I can use the OTAs and I can pay about 50 bucks. 10 times out of 10, you're driving a direct booking. This is what you want to do because even though that rate is cheaper than the OTAs, it's way, way more profitable to be able to drive that direct booking. And not only that, they have that person's information now. They can start that pre-arrival journey where they're sending them emails, getting them up to speed, maybe upgrading their stays, moving their inventory around to best suit that one guest. So to do all this, we need to know the rules of Metasearch. And the first one is budgeting. It is completely flexible. You can spend zero, you can spend tens of thousands of dollars or anywhere in between, and it's completely based on what you need. Obviously, seasonality plays a huge part there. You don't want to spend a ton of money if there's a time where your occupancy is going to be at near 90, 100%. You also can vary your budget based on the platform. Google Hotel Ads typically does better than TripAdvisor. Spend more there and use your remaining budget where you see a lower return on ad spend. And you also want to just constantly focus on ROAS and know when you need to spend and when you don't need to spend. From there, you have bid multipliers. Now, a lot of times your agency might be handling this or whoever's handling your Metasearch management campaigns, but there's a ton of great tools that you can use to maximize your performance. I'll give you one example. Typically on, say, Google Hotel Ads, I'm going to bid, say, $3 a click for someone to stay at my property on Metasearch for, say, 2-night stay. If they're gonna stay 10 nights, I want to increase my bid. I may want to triple or quadruple that click because I know they're gonna book a 10-night stay, and that is way, way more valuable to me from an operational perspective and everywhere else, and obviously revenue perspective as well. Length of stay, I may want to bid more if they're staying longer, like I said, but arrival dates may be close in. I want to bump up my spend to make sure I'm filling last minute occupancy holes. Arrival dates, those midday stays are incredibly important. I want to make sure I bid a little bit more for that and maybe a little bit less for my Saturday arrivals. There's all these different types of tools you can use to make the campaign work. And like I mentioned before, it's occupancy. If you know July 4th, Memorial Day, Labor Day, you name it, you're going to be busy, don't go spending for that click. You're going to get that occupancy. So understand that and have that strategy worked out from the entire year so you understand. Testing all the features is another very important rule. So I'm gonna go back to Google again, but they have something called extensions or callouts on their Metasearch campaign. So you can say, here's my rate, and also free breakfast included, free cancellations, which are huge, best rate guarantee. You can put all different types of extensions and A/B test which ones work best. Again, we're just trying to drive our return on investment higher and higher and higher, which leads me to the next rule is always be testing. At Travel Boom, we always say ABT, always be testing. It doesn't matter if it's a little test, say day parting a campaign. you're going to find little teeny ways you can improve your conversion rate by 1/4% here, maybe 0.5% there, and 1/8% there. But over time, you've built this really optimized conversion funnel that's really going to help you maximize your performance. And then lastly, the #1 rule is if you don't beat the OTAs in rate, it doesn't matter what you do. You can ignore all the rest of it. So let's first focus on Google. Obviously, it's the biggest platform that there is. It is like I said, the largest platform, and it's also the only platform that allows for organic meta results, which is really cool. So if you're a small property or you're a big property and you don't have much inventory and you want to pull back, you can still have that meta exposure. And if you have the best rate, you may not appear in that first 3 or so rates, but you'll be there with the best available rate, which is critically important. And if you're a small property and you using a spreadsheet to do your bookings and you don't even have a PMS, you can use their manual rate table. Like I said, that's the adequate. That's not what you want to do, but it gives everybody from a 4-5 room B&B up to 800-900 room mega resort the same capabilities of getting in front of their customers while they're shopping. So important. From there, TripAdvisor is the #1 review platform. You got to be there, but they also have a cool tool called sponsored positions that you can use within Metasearch to help suppress the OTAs when someone's actively engaging in your property. Again, super, super important. Not using as of a return as Google, but again, very important. And don't forget Bing. Everyone forgets Bing, and it's kind of sad, but it is a pretty good search engine. If you haven't used it lately, it's a lot of exciting things that they're doing on their results page that make it, I think, pretty comparable to Google, if not better. And all the work that they're doing with ChatGPT, AI, and just intuitive learning, they're already starting to chip away a little bit at Google's market share. They're not getting there. I mean, it's going to take them a long time, but don't forget them. We see great returns sometimes. And then lastly, Kayak, Trivago, some of those other tier platforms that are great for just having another line in the water to catch the guest. Lastly, you do want to look at what I call the extended universe of Metasearch. Was it Skyscanner, WeGo? There's some of the more European or global-based meta engines, but they are very good in terms of expanding our exposure. And then there is Meta. We can run Metasearch on Meta and feed our rate to Facebook, which is really cool because Facebook has a ton of automations and targeting. I can target people who have family looking to travel, and I can show them the best available rate for my location based on their activity in socials. And the last thing you want to do in terms of implementing it is technology. You have to invest in a little bit of technology if you want it to work well. So we used to manage at Travel Boom our meta campaigns manually. That's kind of what you had. You had Google, you had TripAdvisor were the two that you really used. Maybe 400% or 500% ROAS on TripAdvisor, about 800% to 900% on Google. When you integrate the AI components of an advanced Metasearch platform, in our case with Travel Boom, we use a system called DerbySoft, which is a phenomenal platform. I really love them. It's very affordable, but it allows you to tie into that AI component and just maximize your return on investment. Once we did that, and I'll show you some specific examples here in a few minutes, it revolutionized our performance. We were getting 500-600% ROAS on TripAdvisor, maybe 1,000 on Google. We're able to double that in many cases, and it just pales in comparison to the small budget that you have to put toward your technology. That AI-based bidding is so important, but there's also more behind a true advanced meta management platform. Like I said, like DerbySoft, whichever one you decide to go with, because it gives you a wider array of connections. You can get to those Skyscanners, the Trivagos, the Kayaks that might not necessarily natively tie into your PMS or booking engine. And you also have a lot of really good reports. ABT, like we say, always be testing. You got to have good reports, and our analytics team loves them. Being able to dive in and see, day part, specific campaigns, specific package, specific rate, and tweaking those campaigns to optimize them to be assured that every dollar you spend is going to have a really good investment if you keep your rates lower. So let's talk about measuring it. It kind of leads us to the next thing. Some things that you can expect is you can expect to see over 1,000% ROAS. In many cases, if you're running your campaign remotely effectively, you'll be well above a 10-to-1 return. It's critical to driving direct bookings. We talked about the importance of having that search results page domination strategy, not letting the OTAs come in with already aware of your brand. And you can set your budget specifically as you need to, which is fantastic. So what can you get? So hopefully you guys can see this. I kind of call some things out. This is an individual property, under 200 rooms, off season, but they spent $2,800 and made $54,000. They had a $19.21 for every dollar they spend, or we would say a 1,922% return on ad spend. Phenomenal. A multi-property brand, they have about 8 or 9 properties running concurrently. They spent $41,000, so a pretty big spend, but they generated, what is that? It spent $41,000. They generated $512,000, which is incredible. And it's gonna be hard to see, but I'm gonna kind of pinch and zoom for everybody. It says for Bing, which we don't forget, they had a 2,700% return on ad spend. For Google, 1,539%. Previously for this client, 1,000% was what we were roughly getting. So, increase it by a good 50%. TripAdvisor, typically we would get maybe 100% on a good day, 736% return on ad spend, off season. Let's talk about a large property or large brand with multiple properties. In this case, they spent $10,000 and they started hitting a cap in terms of impression share, but they generated $223,000 in revenue for $22 for every dollar that they spent, which is just incredible. And in every one of those cases, not only did they drive that revenue direct, they got the customer's information. They're able to start forming that relationship, as any good hotelier should do. We may be doing business online, but as a hotelier, you do business face to face, and you want to get them to that point. So that is really the main core of what we want to talk about today. And let's take a look at someone who's actually doing it right. This is Ocean Reef Resort in Myrtle Beach. But if you look at this page, we have the pay-per-click campaign, which is right there at the very top. You have the organic listing. They're in the #1 position, so they have some lower level navigation links in there, which is fantastic. They have the meta results, both at the paid position and also down there, the other options. That's the organic position on Google. And then they got their business listing right here. Booking.com and Expedia are showing there. You're not going to be able to eliminate the OTAs, but you can dominate them. And in this case, you can see they have controlled this search page, which is so important because they've already spent the money telling people at Ocean Reef Resort. Somebody typed in Ocean Reef Resort, which means there was PR involved, there was branding involved, there was probably email campaigns and pay-per-click campaigns and all the other kind of stuff that goes along with it. If they let this customer book through an OTA, they spent all that money driving them, and they say, you know what, we're going to pay an additional 20% to get that guest. And it gets to be where it's, I don't want to say lazy marketing, because this stuff can be complex and hard, but knowing what the capabilities are should hopefully lead everyone down that path of finding a better way to incorporate Meta to a great strategy to achieve what we have here, which is the holy grail of hotel marketing, direct bookings. Again, so important. I can't emphasize it enough, but that's what Metasearch can do for you. Like I said, it's Metasearch magic. It's some pretty cool stuff, and I know this was a very granular topic, but it's one of those ones I think in 2023, if everybody thinks a little bit about it, experiments, put some budget toward it, you're really gonna be happy with the dividends that it pays off. So that's what I have for you. Do you guys have questions or whatnot? I'm happy to dive in. Yeah.